The loud sound of metal crashing echoed through the hallway as Dr. Zendar's tentacles slammed against the examination table, causing several students to recoil in surprise. "Impossible!" the alien professor bellowed, his 6 eyes narrowing as he pointed at the human, sitting calmly on the medical bed. "Mr. Spencer Collins, your medical profile states you had major abdominal surgery just 7 standard cycles ago. That would mean—" "I removed the stitches myself this morning," Spencer replied with a casual shrug, lifting his shirt to reveal a thin pink line across his abdomen where a 20-centimeter surgical incision had been. "The surgeon said to wait 10 days, but it felt ready." The room fell silent as 30 alien medical students stared in disbelief. Spencer Collins sat uncomfortably on the examination table of the Galactic Medical Academy's xenobiology wing, feeling like a specimen under a microscope, which, in many ways, he was. "That is medically irresponsible and physiologically impossible," Dr. Sendar insisted, his scale-covered skin flushing a deep purple with agitation. "Humans cannot heal at such rates. Your biological profile indicates your species requires minimum 14 cycles for basic tissue regeneration." Spencer adjusted his position on the cold metal table. His abdomen still ached, though he'd never admit it to the alien doctor whose entire lecture was based on human fragility. "With all due respect, Professor, I think your data on humans might be outdated." The diplomatic incident that had led to Spencer's presence on Proxima Station had been purely accidental. 6 months ago, Earth had finally been invited to join the Galactic Alliance, a coalition of 12 advanced species who had mastered interstellar travel centuries before humanity. As part of the cultural exchange program, Spencer, an anthropologist specializing in interspecies communication, was among the first humans to live and work on the massive space station orbiting Proxima Centauri. The emergency appendectomy that had landed him in the alien medical facility hadn't been part of the plan. "Outdated?" Dr. Zendar's voice elevated to a pitch that made Spencer wince. "I'll have you know that the Galactic Medical Compendium has been documenting human physiology since our first contact with your species 63 years ago." Dr. Lissa Kreth, a Larizian physician with silvery skin who had performed Spencer's surgery, cleared her throat gently. "If I may, Professor, our understanding of human biology has indeed evolved since first contact." Her gentle voice provided a stark contrast to Zendar's booming tone. "Mr. Collins demonstrates notable resilience, even by human standards." Spencer smiled gratefully at Dr. Kreth. She had been the only one who believed him when he'd explained that humans sometimes healed faster than the alien medical texts suggested. "Preposterous!" Zender waved a tentacle dismissively. "Next, you'll tell me they can regenerate limbs." One of the students, a young Talaxian with 4 arms, raised one of his upper limbs. "Professor, could it be possible that human healing has been underestimated in our texts? Perhaps a systematic error in the conversion of Earth time to galactic standard?" Spencer seized on this. "That's actually a good point. Our days are shorter than your standard cycles. Maybe that's where the confusion comes in." Dr. Zendar's color deepened to an alarming indigo. "There is no confusion, Mr. Collins. What we have here is a case of human recklessness. You have jeopardized your recovery by removing medical sutures before the prescribed healing period." Spencer was about to argue when a sharp pain shot through his abdomen. He winced involuntarily, one hand moving to his side. Dr. Kraith noticed immediately. "Are you experiencing discomfort, Mr. Collins?" "Just a twinge," Spencer lied. Even his cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The truth was, he'd felt a strange pulling sensation since removing the stitches that morning, but he'd been too proud to admit it. "This is precisely what I mean," Dr. Zender exclaimed, practically quivering with vindication. "Humans possess a dangerous combination of physiological fragility and psychological overconfidence." Dr. Kreth approached with a handheld medical scanner. "May I?" she asked, hovering the device over Spencer's abdomen when he nodded consent. The The scanner projected a three-dimensional hologram of Spencer's internal organs above his stomach. Everyone in the room leaned forward. Spencer craned his neck to see what had captured their attention. "Fascinating," Dr. Kreth murmured. "The external incision appears to be healing remarkably well, but there's minor internal hemorrhaging where the deeper tissue is still knitting together." Spencer's confidence faltered. Is that bad?" Dr. Zender inserted himself between Spencer and the hologram. "It is exactly what our medical protocols predicted would happen if sutures were removed prematurely. Humans simply do not heal as quickly as you seem to believe, Mr. Collins." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Spencer felt like a fool. He'd been so eager to prove that humans weren't as fragile as the aliens believed that he might have actually endangered himself. "I think," Dr. Kreth said carefully, "this presents an excellent learning opportunity." She turned to the assembled students. "Every species heals differently, and individual variation exists within species as well. Mr. Collins is healing faster than our texts suggest is normal for humans, but not as rapidly as he himself believed." Spencer appreciated her diplomatic approach, even as the pain in his side intensified. "So what happens now?" "Now, Mr. Collins," Dr. Zender said with what Spencer could only interpret as smug satisfaction, "we resuture your wound, and you adhere to the full healing protocol as initially prescribed." The next few minutes were uncomfortable as Spencer was prepped for the minor procedure to resuture his wound. The students observed with fascination as Dr. Kreth applied a local anesthetic and carefully began to close the areas that had reopened. "I don't understand," Spencer said through gritted teeth. "It looked healed on the outside." "A common misconception," Dr. Zender explained to the class, seemingly forgetting his irritation in the face of a teaching moment. "Many species evolved to prioritize external healing as a defense against infection. The epidermis seals quickly, giving the appearance of complete healing while deeper tissues are still in early regenerative stages." Spencer felt his face flush with embarrassment. He'd been so certain he was right, so determined to prove the aliens wrong about human fragility. "There's no need for embarrassment, Mr. Collins," Dr. Kreth said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "Your healing rate is actually impressive compared to our initial expectations, just not quite as miraculous as you hoped." As she worked, a tall, gangling student with pale blue skin and 4 eyes raised a hand. "Professor, could we be witnessing adaptive evolution? Humans evolved on a planet with high pathogenic pressure. Perhaps their healing rates accelerated in response." Dr. Zender considered this. "An interesting hypothesis, Student Vrex. Though, if that were true, we would expect to see more variation in healing rates among humans based on their geographical origins." Spencer saw an opening. "Actually, there is variation. People from different regions do show different responses to injury and disease. Some populations have genetic adaptations that others don't." This caught Dr. Zender's attention. "Is that so?" For the first time, he seemed genuinely curious rather than dismissive. "I was under the impression that human genetic variation was minimal compared to most sentient species." "Compared to species like the Larizians, yes," Spencer admitted, nodding toward Dr. Kreth. "But there are significant differences in how humans from different ancestral backgrounds respond to medications, how quickly we heal, even how we metabolize nutrients." Dr. Kreth finished the last suture and applied a transparent gel-like substance over the incision that immediately hardened into a flexible seal. "There. This biofilm will dissolve naturally as the tissue heals. No removing it early this time, Mr. Collins." Spencer nodded sheepishly. Lesson learned. Dr. Zender was quiet for a moment, his tentacles tapping thoughtfully against his data tablet. "Mr. Collins, would you be willing to participate in a more comprehensive study? If human healing rates are indeed more variable than our literature suggests, this could represent a significant update to the Galactic Medical Compendium." Spencer was surprised by the request. "You want to study me?" "Not just you. We could request additional human volunteers through the exchange program. with proper ethics approvals, of course. Dr. Zendar's tone had shifted from dismissive to professionally enthusiastic. "I guess that could be arranged," Spencer replied cautiously, "as long as it doesn't involve deliberately injuring people." "Certainly not." Dr. Zendar seemed offended at the suggestion. "We have non-invasive monitoring technologies that can observe cellular regeneration in real time. And with your routine activities, minor injuries are statistically inevitable." Spencer couldn't argue with that. In his 6 months on Proxima Station, he'd managed to accumulate quite a collection of bumps and bruises, simply navigating environments designed for anatomies different from his own. "If I may," Dr. Kreth interjected, "I believe this could benefit both our medical knowledge and human integration into the Alliance. Understanding each other's biological capabilities prevents both underestimation and unrealistic expectations." Spencer thought about it. His pride had taken a hit today, but maybe some good could come from it. "All right, I'm in, but I have one condition." "Which is?" Dr. Zender asked, his tentacles curling slightly in what Spencer had learned was an expression of caution. "The research has to be collaborative. I want human doctors involved, comparing notes with your team. Real exchange of knowledge, not just observation." Dr. Zendar's skin shifted to a thoughtful shade of blue. "That would require approval from the Academy Board. Traditionally, research methodologies are proprietary to—" "I think it's an excellent suggestion," Dr. Kreth interrupted. "The Alliance was formed on principles of mutual benefit through knowledge sharing. This would exemplify those ideals." The tension in the room was palpable as Dr. Zendar considered the proposal. Finally, his skin settled into a calm lavender hue. "Very well. A collaborative study it shall be. I will submit the proposal today." As the class began to disperse, Spencer carefully slid off the examination table, mindful of his newly restitched wound. The pain had subsided, thanks to whatever was in the anesthetic Dr. Kreth had used. "Mr. Collins," Dr. Zender said as Spencer was preparing to leave, "I must apologize for my dismissive attitude earlier. It seems I fell victim to the very cognitive bias I warned my students against, assuming that the data we have is complete and definitive." Spencer smiled. "No hard feelings, Professor. I was being stubborn too. I guess we both learned something today." "Indeed. Though next time, perhaps we can advance scientific knowledge without compromising your internal organs." Spencer laughed, then immediately regretted it as his abdomen protested. "Deal." 3 weeks later, Spencer stood in the center of a circular chamber in the Xenobiology Research Center, surrounded by an array of scanning equipment. The study had moved forward with surprising speed, with 20 human volunteers from the exchange program participating alongside volunteers from other Alliance species. "Remarkable," Dr. Zendar muttered as he reviewed the data streaming across his screen. "The variation is even more pronounced than I anticipated." Dr. Sarah Wilson, a human physician who had arrived on Proxima Station just days after Spencer's resuturing incident, nodded in agreement. "Human healing rates vary based on age, genetics, nutrition, stress levels, and numerous other factors. That's why our medical protocols include ranges rather than fixed timelines." Spencer had been relieved when Dr. Wilson joined the research team. Having another human, especially one with medical expertise, made him feel less like an oddity and more like part of a genuine scientific exchange. "The data from Subject 14 is particularly intriguing," Dr. Kreth noted, gesturing to a different screen. "Her cellular regeneration rate exceeds our highest recorded measurements for humans." "That's Lisa Durham," Dr. Wilson explained. "She's a construction engineer who works in the low-gravity assembly zones. Recent studies on Earth suggest that varying gravity exposure might enhance certain aspects of healing in humans, though we don't fully understand the mechanism yet." Dr. Zendar's tentacles twitched with excitement. A gravity-responsive healing adaptation? That could explain so much about the inconsistencies in our previous data. Spencer watched the exchange with satisfaction. What had begun as an embarrassing incident had evolved into something genuinely beneficial. The research team was documenting not just how humans healed, but why the rates varied so significantly, knowledge that would update medical protocols throughout the Alliance. "Spencer," Dr. Wilson called, gesturing him over to her station, "we'd like to do a final scan of your surgical site. It's been exactly 30 days since your resuturing, and we want to document the complete healing process." Spencer nodded and positioned himself on the scanning platform. The non-invasive scanner hummed softly as it passed over his abdomen. "Perfect timing," Dr. Wilson said as the results appeared. "Completely healed, right on schedule, the human schedule, that is." She gave Spencer a wink. Dr. Zendar approached to examine the results. "Fascinating. The internal tissue integrity has fully restored, and the scarring is minimal." He glanced at Spencer. "It seems you were not entirely incorrect about your healing capabilities, Mr. Collins. You do heal faster than our texts suggested, just not quite as rapidly as you believed." Spencer grinned. "I'll take that as a win." "There's something else," Dr. Kreth said, joining them at the console. "We've been compiling comparative data between humans and other Alliance species. While humans don't heal as quickly as Larizians or Talaxians in absolute terms, your healing efficiency relative to metabolic rate is actually among the highest we've measured." "Meaning?" Spencer asked. "Meaning that for a species with your specific energy consumption pattern, you heal remarkably well," Dr. Zender explained. "It's not just about speed, but about resource efficiency." "That makes sense from an evolutionary perspective," Dr. Wilson added. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We needed to be able to recover quickly from minor injuries while continuing to function with limited food resources." As the research team continued discussing the findings, Spencer felt a sense of pride, not the defensive pride that had led him to remove his stitches prematurely, but a deeper satisfaction in contributing to genuine cross-species understanding. 6 months after Spencer's ill-advised self-removal of stitches, the results of the collaborative study were published in the Galactic Medical Journal. Variability in human healing rates, implications for xenomedicine, became one of the most accessed articles in the publication's history. Spencer stood with Dr. Zendar, Dr. Kreth, and Dr. Wilson at the official presentation ceremony in the grand atrium of Proxima Station. Representatives from all 12 Alliance species had gathered to hear about the findings that were already changing medical protocols throughout Alliance territory. "Before our research," Dr. Zendar was saying to the assembled crowd, "the standard medical protocols called for human patients to be treated with the most conservative healing estimates, often resulting in unnecessary restrictions and prolonged recovery periods. Now, with our new understanding of human healing variability, we can provide more personalized care based on individual assessment." Dr. Wilson stepped forward. "Equally important, this research has identified factors that can optimize healing in humans and several other Alliance species. Targeted nutrition, calibrated gravity exposure, and specific light wavelengths have all shown promising results in accelerating tissue regeneration without complications." Spencer watched with a sense of wonder. What had begun as a moment of personal stubbornness had transformed into a significant advancement in interspecies medicine. As the presentation concluded and the audience applauded, Dr. Zendar approached him. "I have been meaning to tell you something, Mr. Collins," the professor said, his skin shifting to a warm orange hue that Spencer had come to recognize as the alien equivalent of sincerity. "Your impulsive action with those stitches may have been medically inadvisable, but it sparked a question that needed asking. Sometimes, scientific progress requires someone to challenge established knowledge." Spencer smiled. "Even if that challenge comes from someone removing their stitches too early." "Especially then," Dr. Zendar replied, his voice containing what Spencer could swear was humor. "Though I still don't recommend it as a research methodology." Later that evening, Spencer sat in the station's observation lounge, staring out at the stars in the faint blue glow of Proxima Centauri. Lisa Durham, the construction engineer whose remarkable healing abilities had provided some of the study's most valuable data, joined him with 2 cups of coffee. "Quite a day," she said, handing him one of the cups. "From troublemaker to scientific pioneer in 6 months. Not bad." Spencer laughed. "I still can't believe something so positive came from me being an idiot." "That's how a lot of scientific discoveries happen," Lisa replied with a grin. "Someone does something they shouldn't, and we learn something new in the process." "I guess so. Still, I wouldn't recommend the remove your own stitches to prove aliens wrong approach to scientific inquiry." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as a transport ship detached from the station and accelerated toward the jump point that would take it to another star system. "You know what I find most interesting about all this?" Lisa said eventually. "What's that?" "We came all this way, met all these advanced species, and it turns out they didn't fully understand us any more than we understood them. Everyone had these preconceptions based on limited data." Spencer nodded. "That's the thing about first contact situations. Both sides think they know more than they do. The Alliance had been studying humans for decades, but they were still working from incomplete information. And we thought they were so advanced they must know everything," Lisa added, "when really they're just scientists doing their best with the information they have, just like us." The observation lounge began to fill with more people as the station's day cycle transitioned to evening. Among them were several alien species, some talking with humans, others in their own groups. The casual interaction between different species still amazed Spencer sometimes how quickly the extraordinary had become ordinary. Dr. Kreth spotted them and made her way over. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said. "Not at all," Lisa replied, gesturing to an empty seat. "Join us." The Loresian settled into the chair, her silvery skin reflecting the starlight streaming through the massive viewport. "I wanted to share some news. The Academy Board has approved funding for a permanent Human Alliance Cooperative Medical Research Center." "That's fantastic," Spencer said. "Will you be involved?" Dr. Kreth's skin rippled in what Spencer had learned was an expression of pleasure. "I've been appointed associate director, and Dr. Wilson will be serving as the human co-director." "Perfect choice," Lisa said. "She knows her stuff and doesn't take nonsense from anyone, even Dr. Zendar." "Speaking of whom," Dr. Kreth continued, "he's revised his entire teaching curriculum based on our research. The new edition of his textbook includes a full chapter on healing variability across and within species. He even credits you, Spencer, in the acknowledgments." Spencer nearly choked on his coffee. He what? His exact words were, "To Spencer Collins, whose ill-advised self-treatment paradoxically advanced our understanding of human physiology." Lisa burst out laughing. "That's perfect. You should have it engraved on something." Spencer shook his head, grinning despite himself. "I'm never going to live this down, am I?" "Probably not," Dr. Kreth admitted. "But your mistake led to something important. The updated protocols have already reduced recovery times for human patients throughout the Alliance by an average of 23%. That sobered Spencer. "I'm glad something good came out of it." "More than something good," Dr. Kreth said seriously. "Your case made us question our assumptions. Now we're reviewing all our xenobiological data with fresh eyes. There's no telling what other misconceptions we might discover and correct." A soft chime sounded throughout the lounge, indicating the start of the station's night cycle. The lighting dimmed slightly to mimic Earth's sunset. "I should go," Dr. Kreth said, rising from her seat. "There's a conference call with the medical teams on Earth in an hour." She paused, looking at Spencer. "For what it's worth, I think your impulsiveness might be another one of those human traits we've underestimated. You call it recklessness. We might call it the willingness to test boundaries. Without that quality, you might never have reached the stars." After Dr. Kreth left, Spencer and Lisa remained in the observation lounge, watching as the lights of the station reflected against the backdrop of space. "You know what's funny?" Spencer said after a while. If Dr. Zendar hadn't been so dismissive that day, I probably would have just admitted I made a mistake, and that would have been the end of it. So his prejudice about humans being fragile actually led to proving that we're not as fragile as he thought, Lisa replied. There's probably a lesson in there somewhere. Probably several, Spencer agreed. But the main one I'm taking away is to listen to my doctor next time, Lisa laughed. Somehow I doubt that's going to stick. Hey, I can learn from my mistakes. Sure you can, she said, patting his arm patronizingly. Just like you learned from that time you tried to eat Talaxian food even though they specifically told you human digestive systems couldn't process it. Spencer winced at the memory. That was different. How was I supposed to know it would turn my tongue blue for a week? By listening to the experts, maybe? All right, fair point. Spencer raised his coffee cup in a mock toast to listening to experts most of the time, and to questioning them just enough to keep everyone honest, Lisa added, tapping her cup against his. As they sat there watching the stars, Spencer reflected on how far humanity had come, not just in traveling to the stars, but in finding its place among the vastly different species of the Alliance. There would be more misunderstandings, more assumptions to challenge on both sides. But each correction, each new piece of shared knowledge, brought them all closer to genuine understanding. Spencer touched the now invisible scar on his abdomen. Sometimes healing happened in ways you didn't expect, and sometimes the most valuable lessons began with a mistake. A year to the day after Spencer had impulsively removed his stitches, he stood in a classroom at the Galactic Medical Academy, facing a group of mixed-species medical students. At Dr. Sendar's invitation, he had become a regular guest lecturer in the xenobiology program. The most important thing to remember about treating any species, Spencer told the attentive class, is that medical literature will give you averages, typicals, and statistical norms. But your patient is an individual, not a statistic. A young Lauresian student raised her hand. How do we balance respecting biological variation with adhering to established medical protocols? Where is the line between necessary caution and excessive restriction? Spencer smiled. It was the perfect question, the very question that had launched an entire field of research. That, he said, is exactly what we're still figuring out, and why we need doctors from all species working together. He gestured to the door as Dr. Zendar entered the classroom. I think Professor Zendar might have some thoughts on that balance. The alien professor joined Spencer at the front of the room, his skin a calm blue that Spencer now knew indicated professional satisfaction. Indeed I do, Dr. Zendar said, addressing the class. The history of medicine across all our cultures is a history of balancing protocols with exceptions, rules with observations. Sometimes, he added with a meaningful glance at Spencer, it takes someone breaking the rules to show us where our knowledge is incomplete. As Spencer listened to Dr. Zendar explain the nuances of cross-species medical care, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The pain and embarrassment of that day had faded, replaced by the knowledge that his mistake had ultimately improved medical care for humans throughout the Alliance. After the lecture, as Spencer and Dr. Zendar walked through the Academy's sprawling campus, the professor turned to him. I've been meaning to ask you something, Mr. Collins. What's that? That morning, when you removed your stitches, why did you do it? You must have known it was against medical advice. Spencer considered the question carefully. Honestly, I was tired of being treated like I was made of glass. Every alien I met seemed to think humans were these fragile, delicate creatures who needed special protection. I guess I wanted to prove we were tougher than everyone thought. Dr. Zendar's skin rippled in understanding. And you were right in a way. Not about the stitches that was genuinely premature, but about our misconception of human resilience. I got lucky, Spencer admitted. My stubbornness could have caused real harm. Perhaps, Dr. Zendar agreed, but it also led to a re-examination of assumptions that has benefited countless patients. Sometimes, progress requires someone willing to challenge the established wisdom, even if their method leaves something to be desired. As they reached the intersection where their paths would diverge, Dr. Zender extended a tentacle in the formal Hextillian gesture of respect. "The new semester begins next month. We would be honored if you would continue your guest lectures." Spencer grinned and carefully returned the gesture, mindful of the proper angle to avoid any cultural misunderstandings. "I'd be happy to. Though I should warn you I have some thoughts about your chapter on human immune responses that might ruffle some tentacles." Dr. Zendar's skin shifted to a bright, interested yellow. "Is that so? Well then, Mr. Collins, I look forward to having my tentacles ruffled. After all, that seems to be when the best science happens." As Spencer watched the professor glide away toward his next lecture, he couldn't help but smile. In challenging alien assumptions about human healing, he'd found not just scientific collaboration, but genuine friendship across the stars. And that, perhaps, was the most unexpected healing of all.